Hey, Salvador Brickman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified YouTube channel. And today we were talking about logistics when it comes to Kickstarter and also Indiegogo. What are some of the logistical questions? You know, obviously a fun term, I guess, a fun subject. What are some of the logistical things that you are going to want to consider going into your upcoming crowdfunding campaign? That's what I want to cover today and to bring a little bit of fun to the subject as well. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, my name is Sal and let's get started. Okay, so logistics. My gosh, this is probably one of the most boring subjects out there. Let's be honest. Wasn't planning on making a video on logistics, but then I was like, you know what? This is actually one of the most important things I think that I could talk about. And it might be a little bit boring for you, or you might be like, I'm gonna tune out from this. I'm gonna go watch next episode on Netflix, or I'm gonna go read a book, maybe, if you really like reading books, which is so rare nowadays, or I'm gonna go play a tabletop game, right? But if you actually take the time to write out a few notes and to understand this, it's gonna really dramatically help your progress in the future. And here's why. Like, I love to talk about marketing, man. Like, marketing is my bread and butter. It's something I love talking about, love teaching about. I love talking about sales as well, e-commerce, Shopify, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, like all that kind of stuff. But that's really the sort of forefront of the house. Like, that's almost like you're seeing the house from the outside and you're not understanding what's happening on the interior, right? So if you look at a building, let's just say, like a beautiful glass building, okay, and you're admiring it from the outside, it looks so cool, look at the promotions, look at the design, even some of the rooms, there's still a lot of inner workings in that building to make it livable, right? You have like plumbing, you have electric, you have all the different staff and the people that are working together, garbage disposal. There's all these little like micro operations which are allowing that building to function as a building. And if it's a really horribly managed building or really horribly maintained building, no one wants to live there, even if it's beautiful, right? Unless you're like, I don't know, like a slumlord or something like that. Those Monopoly properties who have the brown Monopoly properties, I don't know if you ever played Monopoly, but those ones that are like super cheap, that's like slumlord properties or whatever. But I'm talking about like a good property. So if you want to have a good property, you got to have good management, right? You got to have good inner workings and that kind of stuff. And that's really logistics when it comes to a Kickstarter campaign. Is you could have a ton of funding. You could do everything I tell you to do in my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula. You could follow to a T what I talk about in my mastermind group. You can do a one-on-one coaching call with me. I can really run through everything that you got to do for your specific book, your specific category, your specific product or whatever. And we could do that. But at the end of the day, if you don't have logistics down, you might end up just attracting a lot of angry customers, right? You might be getting a huge tribe of people who are following you, and then that tribe kind of turns on you and they're like, where's my product? Where's my stuff? You demanded all this stuff. Like, where is that, right? And that's what I really want to kind of prevent and avoid. But also, it hurts the community, man. It hurts the crowdfunding community when we don't have products that are being delivered well. So let's talk a bit about this. First of all, what are some of the logistical questions that you're going to want to answer? Number one, you're going to want to think about where the product is going to be manufactured, where the raw materials are going to come from for that manufacturing process. After that product is manufactured, where is it going to go next? Take just a tiny bit to sketch out what is the supply chain for my particular product. And this is so different, man. If you have like an apparel business, or you have a tech business, or you have these different things, there's a lot that goes into each of these types of products. You have a book business, right? A publishing business. So I can't really advise in one video on like all of that. So I'm gonna keep it kind of general, which is think about where's the product being manufactured, where are the materials coming from, and after that manufacturing and assembly happens, where is it going next? Is it going to your house, your garage? We're gonna have a bunch of inventory there. Is it gonna be going to a fulfillment company like Fulfillrite, who's a sponsor of my YouTube channel? Is it be going to another place, right? Think a little bit about that. Is what does the supply chain look like? In addition, within the supply chain, there are things that go beyond the scope of this video, for example, talking about duties or taxes, or when you are shipping, who's covering those charges, right? Those are all different things that you're gonna wanna start to consider when you're sourcing a product, as it's called, right? So that way, when you eventually get all this funding and all these orders, you're not just scrambling and like, okay, now I got to figure out this, and now I got to figure out manufacturing, now I got to figure out logistics. Ideally, you do a little bit of that ahead of time. But as a Kickstarter creator, you should also be aware of something, and that's this is always changing. Think of this as like an ever-changing landscape, and here's why. There are different worldwide events that happen. There are shortages in commodities around the world. We just saw recently a shortage of like wood, and the price of wood just skyrocketed. So there's always these different elements, natural disasters, worldwide pandemics, right? Things at play that change the price of raw materials, that change the price of shipping. For example, when COVID first hit, air freight rates went super high because everyone was using PPE, I think it's called, equipment, and they were shipping it that way. So it was just like not very good for a lot of logistics in the supply chain. So be aware of that just because you also map out a particular supply chain doesn't mean that that's going to stay that way. It could change as well in the months following your campaign, or as you go, you might find that there are delays in manufacturing and fulfillment. And Kickstarter backers already know this. They already know that when they're backing a product, they're not pre-ordering it, right? They're backing a project. But still, you gotta be transparent. You gotta make them aware of that. You gotta do updates, and if you can, at least be transparent about where you are in that stage or some of the challenges that you might be wrestling with, and you'd be surprised. People are usually a little bit more forgiving when you are honest and transparent versus you try to just like pull the wool over their eyes and hope that everything works. That then gets them thinking like maybe this guy is scamming me, or maybe these other things are happening, and it kind of puts them in not so great of a mindset, right? So make sure that you're aware of that, and you thought a tiny bit about the logistical side when it comes to the supply chain. Next, when I'm talking about logistics, would be things like how do we use the interface of Kickstarter, or if you want to call it like e-commerce, how do we use that in order to communicate and interface with the fulfillment company, right? So you're going to be getting orders on Kickstarter. Now, there are different things you can do on Kickstarter to actually kind of help curb against potential issues when it comes to supply chain. So the first one would be, for example, collecting shipping information when you are live on Kickstarter and specifying which countries you would like to ship to. So maybe you want to ship to just the United States or US and international and have two different prices. Maybe you want to have country-specific prices, right? Maybe you don't even want to collect your shipping costs on Kickstarter itself, and you want to do one of the other techniques that I recommend in my book, Kickstarter Launch Formula, or I also think I can put out a video as well on this YouTube channel about that, different ways to collect shipping prices with your Kickstarter campaign. If you have any questions, you definitely check out Fulfill, right? Because they're really good about that stuff. But that being said, you can use the interface of Kickstarter to be able to kind of curb a little bit of your downside that way. The other things would be when it comes to your backers. So when people back your campaign on Kickstarter, it's not like you're then going to start sending out products immediately. The campaign is still live, right? It might be live for 30 days or 45 days or 60 days. With the live campaign, you then, after the campaign is finished, are then going to be able to export your list of backers. And sort of your options begin to open up from there. So for example, you could use a pledge manager tool out there in order to help you coordinate logistics and fulfillment, and also upsell people or give an upsell opportunity at the end of the Kickstarter campaign. So that might help, for example, put all these nasty Excel spreadsheets and all of this data into a much more readable and consumable format that you can then deliver to a fulfillment company, or that you can also use this interface to get, like I said, upsell people or have other add-ons upon checkout with their pledge. So that would probably be, in my opinion, like another major part of the logistical and the fulfillment side that you should be thinking about is, do I want to use a pledge manager tool after the campaign is done? If not, how do I want to handle getting this information of orders, addresses, selection in terms of the items and specifications there? How do I want to get that to the fulfillment company? Now, one of the questions you might be wondering is like, okay, if there are different SKUs or there are different components within that actual product order, how am I going to collect that information? So at the time I'm recording this video, the way that Kickstarter does it is that they use surveys. So you can send a survey to backers to collect the information that is necessary in order for you then to fulfill that reward. So you can export certain information, and also with the survey, gather a bunch of other information that you might need in order to fulfill those rewards or to fulfill those promises, those perks, right, that you are promising backers. So you can also use that built-in tool in order to help enable fulfillment there. And then you can kind of do a lot of organization and formatting and make sure and keep track of the status of those different orders on your side, as well as within the actual Kickstarter dashboard. You can make notes on people's particular pledges in order to maybe say like, oh, this person, I want to give them an extra accessory thing because this thing happened. I wanted to thank them about that, right? So you could also make internal notes within the actual Kickstarter dashboard in order to help with your logistical and fulfillment questions or needs or those things related to that.
Want to take all the stress out of fulfilling your Kickstarter rewards? Fulfillrite is the turnkey solution that puts product delivery on autopilot. The Top Campaigns uses trusted high-tech provider to store, package, and ship their products. Focus on growing your business. Leave shipping to the experts. Don't wait. Get a custom quote from Fulfillrite today. Link in the description.
The last thing that I want to talk about is, and let's be honest, there's so many different things we could be covering here. I don't want this one to be like a 30-minute long video, but there are a lot of things we could talk about. The other like major one, at least that comes to mind, is thinking a tiny bit about your policies. Now, I know this doesn't sound very exciting, not very interesting. Policies, like that's to me like one of the most boring things. Boring words, do policies, right? But it is kind of important, and I think that particularly when it comes to certain cases, it can really help. It's almost like a letter of law internally within your company. So when you set up, for example, like an e-commerce store after Kickstarter or Shopify, you are going to need to create certain policies in order to guide consumer behavior and consumer questions. So for example, let's just say like a policy as it relates to returns. So in which cases is a return warranted? Or if you have some kind of a warranty related to your product, in which cases does that fall under the warranty? What is the number of days that someone has to claim a warranty, or if it's a defective product to ask for a return, right? That is up to you. There are creators out there who will provide returns. There are other ones who will not. It's really creator specific. And I would say in general, the majority of creators that I've worked with or that I've talked with as well on Kickstarter are not really doing returns very often, because it's more of like a creation platform. It's more when you get to e-commerce that tends to be more of the case. However, maybe you would like to stand out. Maybe you want to provide that level of assurance for your backers. It's up to you, and it's kind of a personal decision and also a business choice in terms of what you can afford regarding the risk levels. So that might be another element to consider when it comes to the logistical side of doing a Kickstarter campaign, and kind of to make sure that you're not just seeing this beautiful building, like you're driving down the highway, you're driving down the road, and you see this beautiful building, you're like, this is so beautiful, and you go in and it's like, oh, this is actually really not that great. You start to learn about the management and that stuff. Instead, it'd be nicer if you see a beautiful building and you also go in and like, this is incredible, this is like a luxurious experience, this is amazing, right? That's more the experience I'm trying to share with some of these tips, is that you have to think about this stuff ahead of time, and it takes a lot of forward planning, which is why most people will work with a coach or work with an agency or work with other people to help them on these things. But you want to think about this. The more that you do, that you nail down your supply chain, you nail down the variable costs in that particular supply chain, you think a little bit about shipping, logistics, policies, etc., duties, which locations you're going to be sending this to, the happier you're going to be in the long run. I think you're going to be enjoying this process a lot more. So if you did enjoy this video, number one, take a second to check out my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula, which is available on audio. That's crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio will take you there. Also, if you're interested, you can learn more about my mastermind down below. You can book a one-on-one coaching call with me there through the mastermind. And in addition, if you want any more information about fulfillment and stuff like that, go and check out the link down below for Fulfillrite. Those guys are amazing at what they do. They're also super awesome in general. Really solid dudes. They've been my sponsor since like, I think 2013, 2014, something like that. So it's really been a long run, like positive relationship with them, and I've really had a great time. But hope you enjoyed this video. Again, my name is Salvador Brigman, and I will see you next time.